Welcome to the Maltepes show. My name is Matt Maltepes. I'm here with my guest, Joe Santoliquito. I've been here on this show with Joe in the past. I think it was episode 3.
Yeah.
We had a great time.
Amazing interview.
Amazing time. And we're back again.
Yes.
How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing well.
So what's new with Joe Santoliquito?
Well, just maybe what isn't new? Another new season of football, which is great. Another interesting roller coaster ride so far with our Philadelphia Eagles, which is interesting. Covering the high schools, covering the kids, so that's always exciting for me. Got a chance to see a really good fight last weekend with Daniel Du Bois in England in front of 96,000 at Wembley Stadium.
Basically
against
100,000.
Against Anthony Joshua. And actually, I just got done doing a piece that was in the Inquirer today. It's in the Inquirer today. It's going to be
Congrats.
It's on Shane Mosley. Got a chance to speak to Shane. Shane's coming to the area. He's fighting on this celebrity boxing thing. I like what Damon Feldman's doing and Damon's efforts on that and getting Shane involved. And Shane was dipping his big toe in the celebrity pool water, we'll call it, is what I referred to it as. And Shane referenced what's happening in November with Mike Tyson and Jake Paul, which is turning into a little bit of a big thing. At first we thought it was a joke. To a degree, I still may think it may be a joke. I was up there in New York 2 weeks ago when they kicked off the promotional tour for Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. It's 10 rounds, 10 2-minute rounds. And Tyson looked in incredible shape. And Mike in his day obviously was a great fighter. I still think Mike can crack. Mike could still hurt you. Jake Paul, though, is a far better actor because he was selling it well. Yeah. And Tyson was doing everything to keep from just like cracking up in Jake Paul's face. So it makes me wonder a little bit just how legitimate this is going to be. There's still a lot of people that are questioning this. But I understand things are going well with that promotion, and it
goes off in November.
In November,
remember the day?
if you have a calendar in front of you there, I think it's the second week of November. It's on a Friday night.
Okay.
It's on a Friday night at AT&T Stadium, home of the Dallas Cowboys, who got lucky last night.
They definitely did.
But there's some curiosity around this.
Yeah.
And I didn't think at first there would be. There's a lot of people in the boxing industry. I'm president of the Boxing Writers Association, so I talked to a variety of people. And within the boxing community, there's not a lot of... put it this way. There's a hell of a lot of people that would not mind seeing Jake Paul get his clock cleaned. That would not mind seeing... Now Tyson's 58, and Jake Paul is 27.
Yeah, I know.
So
31-year difference.
Yeah, 31-year difference.
Basically 60.
Yeah. But he could still crack. And here's the deal. And just talking to Shane Mosley, another Hall of Famer, a couple days ago, Shane pointed out, and rightfully so, these guys are still pro fighters. Regardless of age, they might not be the big difference. It's like a contact hitter in baseball. My reflexes aren't where they used to be if I'm a 40-year-old power hitter in baseball, but I still have some crack in that bat that I can turn around and lift the ball over the fence. Well, in boxing, these guys, and the last thing they go, what's the saying? The adage is the last thing to go is your punch. The only thing is, as Shane was telling me, and Mike Tyson was actually telling me the same thing, the only difference is you just can't throw it as much as you'd like to throw it. The mind and the will wants you to be able to throw 8, 9, 10 power punches when you can only maybe get off 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to, I think, make this interesting. And hopefully it's going to be real. Now, it is sanctioned. Mm-hmm. It's a sanctioned fight. And it's the main event. And the other thing that's really interesting is these guys are the main event. And usually, again, Matt, you've been around boxing for a while. You know the game. the main event is usually reserved for the best two fighters. In most cases, the best two fighters of the night. And these guys are the main event, and they're not even the best two fighters of the night. I mean, the co-feature is Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor, which I saw in person up in Madison Square Garden, and they did great numbers up there. And people might turn around and wince not knowing who either Katie Taylor or Amanda Serrano are, because this is going to be far more far more for mainstream sports fans, reminiscing about Tyson, the great Tyson in his prime, trying to get a glimpse of that Mike Tyson again against Jake Paul. But one of the real features, if not actually the real feature of that event, is going to be the rematch between Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano.
So I have a question. Mike is 60 years old now. Just about, right?
Yeah, just about close to 60, very close
There's
to 60.
a huge difference between prime 27-year-old
Oh, Jesus, yeah.
and a 60-year-old. Even if you're at your peak fitness, if we just look at the line for the fight, Jake Paul is a 330 favorite.
Okay, wow. I will say this, and again, this is where some of my compatriots in boxing get on me a little bit. I actually think Jake Paul is pretty good for the sport, in the sense that it's giving, where you have a lot of real fighters. Again, Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano, legitimate fighters that are going to be part of the undercard of this major event, and it's giving some shine to a lot of fighters that normally would not get that kind of attention. AT&T Stadium, I believe, fills 100,000 or close to 100,000. And even if they don't sell it out, which I have a strong feeling they will, they're still going to get 80, 85, 90,000 people to tune in and watch that fight. There's a lot of curiosity here behind this. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a Netflix subscriber, but I'm going to find a way, I think, to find some people that do have Netflix to see if I can weaselly worm my way into their lovely homes and be able to watch this for a minute. I am intrigued. I'm curious to see what happens if Tyson really hits him. That's the curiosity piece to me. And again, talking to someone as esteemed, like a Hall of Famer like Shane Mosley, he said the same thing. I mean, for 5 or 6 rounds, it has a chance to be as entertaining as we would like to think it is. I mean, I saw, again, I referred to Du Bois and Anthony Joshua of last weekend. Even though it was one-sided, there was still that element of intrigue, because you just didn't know when Anthony Joshua may wake up and shake up Daniel Du Bois and cause some problems, because Joshua still has power. Joshua still has that ability to turn around, that one-punch power to turn around and knock you out. The 14-point home run punch.
Puncher's chance.
Yeah, but it's just something that boxing has that no other sport has, where you could be down, you could be crushed, you could be, where you're seemingly lost everything, and again be able to have that home run punch that could change everything. And Anthony Joshua is the type that has that. Tyson, even at 58, again, if I were in a bar brawl, or you were in a barroom brawl, you would want someone like a Mike Tyson still in front of you.
Of course. Yeah,
because if he hit like a normal human being, like either of the two of us, just any normal human being, he'd still do serious damage.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you could see that he still has power, but like I said, 60 years old, 27 years old, big difference. Jake Paul's a big favorite. Yeah. And I have a question. Have you seen the videos that Jake Paul has been doing?
No, I have not. No, but I have seen some of the stuff prior to. I've seen some video prior to his last fight, and again, this is where I give Jake Paul credit. First off, he's done a very, very good job marketing himself, an incredible job marketing himself. Number one, he has been to a point accessible, some accessibility to the media, and also I will say this again in credit to Jake Paul. I think he has, I would define as high level club skill. He's a high level club skill. He's a high-skilled club fighter. That he has the skills of basically a club fighter, and that's where I see him possibly being maybe a fringe, maybe 12 or a 12 to 15th ranked guy. as a cruiserweight or as a light heavy, whatever route he wants to go. Obviously, he's fighting heavyweight for this. I don't know what you call it, if you want to call it an exhibition or a fight. But he lives a boxing lifestyle. He trains hard. I know he works hard. He has taken this craft to a serious level where at first it was a joke, which seemed to piss off a lot of people.
He still makes it a joke a little bit. Like I was talking about those videos, he's pretending that he's all out of shape. He basically looks like he's pregnant in the videos, and he's like, well, I'm a heavyweight. You know what I mean? So stuff like that. But it's also what attracts attention, especially with the youth.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that's the other thing, too, is again, regrettably, and I'm president of the Boxing Writers Association, but here's the deal, Matt. The sport's placed itself in the situation that it's in. Again, you're dealing with Mike Tyson and Jake Paul, and people will be talking about that. They'll be talking about it on ESPN. They'll be talking about it at the water cooler. They'll be talking about it in the streets. People are interested, actually, in this twisted.
You know what's funny?
Fight.
Mike Tyson was knocking people out, and Jake Paul wasn't even born.
Yeah. Oh my God.
When you think back on it,
back when boxing had some sway, back when Tyson had that hammer in his hand. I was just out of college when he was coming up, and you had to turn around and maybe mortgage a home to maybe get a ringside seat for a Tyson fight. Obviously, he faded away, and Mike Tyson could have been far better. I think in his prime, Customato would have lived. I think Tyson. I would say he's a fringe all-time great. I don't know if I would put him top 10 heavyweight, maybe possibly top 15, but he also came up in a time when there weren't a whole lot of great heavyweights. Obviously, he's obviously the greatest of all time, but Ali was fighting when Frazier was fighting and Foreman was fighting and Ken Norton was fighting.
The best.
There's some guys, Ernie Shavers. There's a lot of guys there that had ability that to today would easily be world champions. And that's what makes and obviously, oh my God, I'm forgetting one of the best ever, Joe Frazier. But that's what made Ali because he fought during a time of killers. Those guys were killers. And today, you don't have anybody. I got to say, I don't think there's anybody that's close to that right now. You never know what might come up, but in terms of how
the prime of boxing.
Yeah, the prime of the heavyweight division because of how deep the heavyweight division was. And that's what made Ali special because he beat all those guys. He fought all those guys.
Toe to toe.
Yeah, and it's just obviously Tyson was not. The pool was nowhere near as deep when Tyson was ruling the heavyweight division. But Tyson was and should still be respected. And again, I go back over to that. If he hits a normal person, well, Mike Tyson and the Shane Mosleys and the Bernard Hopkinses, these guys are very, very rare. The Canelo Alvarez's, they're very, very rare human beings because they have that instinct of fighting ability. Jake Paul is closer to a normal human, closer to me and you, than he is to Mike Tyson. And that's where I remember Shane telling me this in our conversation a couple of days ago. It's just like when Jake Paul will not know what's going to hit him. And that is the biggest thing. That if Mike cracks him once or twice, he can cause serious problems for Jake Paul. And again, that's where that's the intrigue of this whole thing. That if it is for real, and I hope it's for real, and they throw real punches, and they're not dancing around like Mike Tyson did, was it a couple of years back with that Roy Jones exhibition?
Well, this one's an exhibition too, so.
Yeah, which kind of leads me to believe I just hope they don't paw at each other and do whatever. If you're going to fight. Yeah. Unless maybe
they're trying to make money.
Yeah, or unless maybe turn around and do a WWE thing and call it entertainment.
Yeah.
But like I said, that's the intrigue in this whole thing, and hopefully Mike gets a chance to turn around and hit him, because again, as going back to Shane and what Shane told me, these guys come from great pride. They were the toughest guys on their block. They were the toughest guys in their street. They were the toughest guys in their school, in their class, in their grade. And no one messed with any of these guys coming up. And there's some pride that's still part of these fighters that make them world champions, make them who they are.
Yeah. So let's transition a little bit. We can come back to the Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight. But have you been paying attention to the UFC at all? Do you pay attention? Do you watch?
A little bit, not as much as I used to. I know they had an interesting show down the street a couple of weeks back when Canelo had his title defense. They had something at the Sphere.
Yeah.
And
they said it was amazing people.
Yeah. Yeah. Both crowds. Because I understand Canelo got. I think Canelo drew 20,000.
Yeah.
And I think the Sphere down the street drew 15, 16,000, both sold out. And it also tells me, and granted, the MMA crowd, that UFC crowd, was probably far younger than the crowd up the street watching Canelo.
Of course.
But it says that I think both sports can exist together, and they both can still be very, very fruitful
and prominent. Yeah. But with that being said, Dana White just announced recently that he might be entering the boxing world, doing some type of venture. I don't know what. I don't think he's revealed his plans yet.
Okay.
But what do you think of that?
I think it's great. I go a little bit of a ways back with Dana. I think the world of Dana. I've had a handful of dealings with Dana. Obviously, one of the smartest businessmen ever in the history of professional sports, and what he did and how he built up the UFC and the situation he's created and the audience he has. And I think the thing that I like about Dana is that some people that may hem and haw about money and about this and about that, when it comes to fighting the best, if or when Dana White did put his hand in the boxing, I think we'd continue having great fights. I mean, this year we've had a number of really, really good fights. And with Dana White's involvement, I think there's a chance. No, I don't think there's a chance. I know there'd be more the best fighting the best. There'd be a lot less of this BSing around here and BSing around there. I think the best would fight the best, because Dana White doesn't tolerate anything less. That's why UFC is UFC, because the best fight the best.
I have a question. What do you think about the judges in boxing compared to judges in the UFC?
That I would not be able to give you an honest answer, because I don't have as much great familiarity with UFC judges as I do with boxing judges. I know there's a number of really, really good boxing judges out there. I mean, Steve Weisfeld right over here in Jersey is one of the best, not only in the area, but in the world. But there is what frightens me about boxing, and the days of the old under-the-table knockoff, that's done. There's too much money involved in the sport of boxing. But what bothers me a little bit with the sport of boxing is that there's still incompetence at a very high level, where they'll allow someone who has not the kind of experience they merit to go and judge these fights. And this is, as you know, Matt, this is life and death for these guys. You know, this is real stuff. You know, it's not WWE where you're flying around and you have all the tassels and the colors and everything else like that in the wind. You know, this is these guys crack, and it's for real. And when it's for real, you have to have real, and you must have serious people dealing with a serious sport like boxing. And regrettably, sometimes we don't, and that just comes with ignorance and incompetence.
This show is brought to you by Coffee of Gods. We have some right here. The best coffee in the world. Put lightning in your veins. Now, I also have a question for you, Joe. But for one moment, we're going to take a quick break.
Okay.
We're back here. I'm here with Joe Santoliquito. We've been talking about the Mike Tyson fight, and we talked about the UFC, boxing, many other things. Now, you're a Philadelphia native, right? I'm a Philadelphia native. Yeah. What's big with us is the Eagles. Philadelphia, of course, Philadelphia Eagles. What do you think of the Eagles organization? Last year, we had reports of Jalen Hurts and his attitude last year, to say the least. What do you think of that? And what do you think of the reports of Sirianni getting fired last year? He stood here. He didn't end up getting fired. So what do you make of the whole situation?
I look at what I know. What I know is Jeffrey Lurie and Harry Roseman run a very smart organization. They run a very proactive organization, not so much reactive. There were some issues, some of which I kind of broke a little bit on Jalen Hurts. But it was stressed to me that Jalen Hurts was taken out of his routine, taken out of his comfort zone with that contract. He was being pulled in this direction, that direction, couldn't really kind of put in the time that he normally would put in during an off season. Lost himself a little bit. What
do you mean by lost himself?
I'll tell you what. Thought he was a little bit too big for things. I go back to the example of...
Do you think it was the contract he got, or do you think
the contract? Yeah. I mean, suddenly, hey, I'm a little bit above this. I'm a little bit above the fray. I can do what I want to do and all that other business. But just a little story on how, like, the WWE came in. And the teammates are in the back of the locker room, and they're looking at the belt, and they're passing the belt along, and come on, Jay, come on in the back, and just like I said, it's a small little story, but still, it speaks to where Jalen Hurts was last year, and I stress last year, where Jalen was like, no, I'm cool, guys, and it was just like I said, even though it's a little story, it depicted Hurts in a way that there was a little bit of a divide there between his guys and him.
But isn't that more like personality?
No, because I think he interacted with guys. And this even happened like out of the locker room. This even happened with people that he had a history with, and I mean a good history with, where there was a couple situations where, I'm not going to name names, but I'll just say some people would see him at a Sixers game, for example, and people that had good history with Jalen. And, yo, what's up, Jay? How you doing? And he would walk right by him as if they didn't exist.
Wow.
Now, I will say this. What happened last year was brought to his attention. Was brought to his attention by his own people, was brought to his attention by Eagles management. And I will say this. And it was also stressed to me when I was doing the story to go into the Eagles' collapse of last season. And Hurts was a big part of it. And his behavior off the field was a big part of it. It was stressed to me, emphatically stressed to me, hey, do not confuse this guy with the other guy. Don't confuse this one, meaning Hurts, with the other 1-1, meaning Carson Wentz. Mm-hmm. And they were right. They were right because almost immediately Hurts began engaging. I heard this offseason, for example. He's working out with the guys. He's now working with different position groups. He's engaging his teammates. It's almost a night and day difference between him on the field and him off the field. I will say this too, in fairness to Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is a very respectful person in the sense that he, to a point positive, to a point negative. He, to a point positive, wanted to defer to some of the older guys on that team. I'm not yet ready to turn around and take over the controls here, take over the saddle, and be the king and be the captain and commander. So that was done out of deference and respect to the Fletcher Coxes and the Jason Kelce's of the world. But the other side of it, you as a quarterback just signed a big deal, the whole bit. Got to be vocal. Got to speak up. Where there were situations last season, and it was blatant for everyone to see. He would shut down and shut off. And just completely shut himself down from other things and other people around him. And like I said, it's been spoken to, it's been addressed. He has emotional awareness. He has emotional intelligence. I'm not saying Carson Wentz doesn't have emotional intelligence or emotional awareness, but I just say from what I know of the both of them, Jalen Hurts has far more emotional intelligence and emotional awareness than
how about Sirianni though? We heard talks. There's rumors of him getting fired, some other stuff. Yeah. Then we saw coordinators end up leaving, and then they hired new coordinators. So what do you think of that situation?
I was willing. I'm not. Even though I just kind of rare for me this past weekend came out with the story after the Saints game, the good and bad and ugly that I do for the Saints, and I rarely, if anybody's followed me through the years, I've rarely, if ever, if maybe never, have asked for a coach's head ever in any sport, ever. That's not me. It's not my style. It's not what I do. It's not up to me to decide. But when you have situations like, for example, I literally thought, after this past weekend with the Eagles just getting by the Saints, I literally thought if the Eagles didn't win this game, that Jeff Lurie was going to meet Nick Sirianni down in that locker room and fire his ass right then and there after that game if they didn't win. Obviously, that's an exaggeration. It didn't happen. I do know this. The handful of people that I know down there and the handful of people that I talk to down there, they like Nick. They think Nick's a pretty good coach. Now, I also will say this. Do they have issues with sometimes Nick's emotional outbursts and sometimes his emotional histrionics? Yeah, I think there were issues with that. But also, if you've noticed, and we're only 3 games into the regular season here, he's not acting like that as much as he did in the past. Now, when CJ DJ came up, Gardner Johnson came up to stop Bijan Robinson. Monday night, the home opener against the Falcons. Okay. You saw a little bit of that with Nick, where he's going on a little bit crazy in the sidelines, and then he came down. He peeled it down a little bit and peeled it back a little bit, and he was okay. He is again. He's an offensive guy that I think he's letting some of this trend of this 4th down trend, trying for it. I think it's taken him over to a point where he better watch his tail, because he is going to lose his job if he continues to go the route that he's been going. He tried for it on 4th down early in the Falcons game, and that wound up biting him in the ass because they lost by was it 22-20, right? Yeah. They wound up losing by 2 points to the Falcons, when if it's a gimme field goal that Jake Elliott could easily make. And then you have the 2 situations, not 1 but 2 situations, where they went for it on 4th down again in the red zone. And again, they are easy Jake Elliott field goals. So we're leaving 9 points on the board, 9 points off the board, these previous 2 weeks. And yet he has Elliott try to kick, which I think Elliott certainly has the toe for it, a 60-yarder. So what's the sense in that? I'm going to try it on 4th down when I have easy gimme points. Easily 9 points. The 1 field goal attempt that he bypassed against the Falcons, the 2 field goal attempts that he bypassed again in the red zone in the Saints game, to opt for a 60-yarder that they missed. And here's the thing too, he misses the 60-yarder. The Saints get great field position. What do? They drive down the field for a go-ahead touchdown. So do you think he's going to get fired because of his decision-making? Is that where you're getting to? I think in the end, I'll tell you what, if this leans, I don't think they're going to win on Sunday. I think they're too banged up right now. This is week 3 of the NFL, by the way, we're discussing. Yeah. And after week 3. You're dealing with A.J. Brown out. You're dealing with Devontae Smith out. Possibility of Lane Johnson being out. Somehow, some way. I mean, I know right now that, oh my God, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers coach, and I went to school with him, Todd Bowles. I went to school with Todd at Temple. Great guy, by the way. Fantastic guy. Todd knows how to get to Jalen Hurts. I mean, Hurts is 1-3 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Todd Bowles as calling the shots as the D coordinator. Last year, obviously, Todd was the head coach when the Buccaneers had beaten Hurts in 2021 when Tom Brady was still with the Buccaneers. Again, Todd Bowles did a great job of curtailing Hurts in the 4 games and the 3 losses that the Eagles have had to the Buccaneers. They've only scored 3 touchdowns, and 2 of those 3 touchdowns came in that playoff loss to Tampa Bay. When Tampa Bay, if you remember that game, Tampa Bay was up 31-0. And the Eagles scored 2 basically trash time touchdowns. So you think they lose this week coming up? I do. And you think that's going to result in him getting fired? Oh no! Oh, I don't think in season. That's what I was asked. So I don't think in season Sirianni gets the boot. Even though, like I said, hypothetically, and I stress hypothetically, with that debacle of Sunday, I never raised the issue up until Sunday, where I even actually wrote it. I mean, how many times did you fire Nick Sirianni in your head? How many times did I fire Nick Sirianni in my head with some of those blunders, some of those mistakes that came? And here's something else, too, if you remember in that game, Matt. They were dealing with a 3rd and 2 during a very important time in that game. and they got called for 12 men on the field. You don't do that. It's just so, oh my God.
You think his decision making is going to end up getting him fired at the end of the season? Is that where you're getting to?
Possibly, yeah. Again, if for example, I'll tell you what, if they finish 9-8, he's or 8-9 rather, 17 games goes 8-9, he's gone. If they don't make the playoffs,
yeah,
with the talent they have on this team,
well, you know I think the Cowboys won recently. Cowboys looking solid, Giants looking solid, Washington looking solid. So it seems
Washington. Actually, I'll tell you what, Washington out of those three teams
looks like it's going to be tough.
They kind of scare me more than Dallas looked. I thought Dallas looked awful last night.
Okay.
And I thought the Giants are just. It's a shame. The Giants are just pathetic. They're god awful.
Well, they actually didn't look too bad recently, but we're going to have a tough division there.
Yeah.
If the Eagles do go 9-8, you expect Nick Sirianni to get cut.
If they go 8-9, if they go 8-9 and don't make the playoffs, yeah, I think there's a possibility he gets booted. And then I know people bring up Belichick here and there, kind of waiting in the wings. Mike Vrabel's out there also, two very, very capable NFL coaches, two defensive-minded NFL coaches. I think the New England connection with Lurie helps Belichick become a consideration. I know Belichick's very much about control. Belichick made some personnel decisions, made quite a bit of personnel decisions up in New England that sometimes didn't always work out for Bill. That's why in the end, the Patriots kind of fell by the wayside during his tail end there without Brady. But I also believe at this stage in his life and his career, obviously Bill Belichick wants to coach again. He wants to be, it's a big deal to him, that he is the all-time number one winningest coach in NFL history. And he has a shot at Shula. I think it would take him a couple of years. I don't have the specific numbers. But I know if he has a decent enough team, like the Dallas Cowboys or like the Philadelphia Eagles, he would have that shot. And I think where he sees things now, because this is something else too. After he parted ways, I'm not going to say fired or not. We don't. No, but after he parted ways with Kraft and New England, he didn't get a job offer. So I think he's at a stage, Matt, where he's going to have to swallow some ego there. He's going to have to swallow some pride and just say, "Hey, listen, I'll play along. And you want me to come in and coach? I coach. I do my thing." Even though, again, it's a big thing to borrow a phrase from Belichick's mentor, Bill Parcells. Well, if I'm going to shop, if I'm going to be out here shopping, I want to be able to pick. If I'm calling the shots, I want to be able to have the groceries. Yeah. But I think in his case and where Belichick is in his life and his career, I think he'd be willing to turn around and just say, "Listen,
wait for the right spot.
I will do what you guys want me to do. I'll be the good soldier, and I'll bring the Belichick system to this team, and whatever team it is, I'm a Bill Belichick believer."
Okay.
I think he would certainly win in Dallas. I think he would certainly win in Philadelphia if things don't go the way they could go in Philadelphia.
So jumping to the next topic, we have the election coming up. It's a big election, 2024 election, presidential election. I think we're about 38 days away.
Yeah.
RFK Jr. has been big in this election with what he's done. We have his uncle. It's been about 61 years since 61,
November 22nd, 1963, Dallas, Texas.
It's going to be 62 years, right? Or 60, 62, no, 61 years coming up.
61 years, yeah.
Yeah, 61 years coming up.
Yeah.
What do you think about the JFK assassination? There's a lot of theories, a lot of people that say it was the CIA, it was this, it was that. What do you think of that situation?
I did a huge paper on this in college. It's one of my favorite topics, and people don't, again, put facts together. One, they used the thing of the crazy bullet flying in and flying out. You had a guy, Governor Connolly, who was on a jump seat that was lower to Kennedy and slightly inboard. So when Kennedy was shot, the bullet actually went straight through Kennedy and into Connolly. It didn't twist, it didn't turn, it went right through them. Because people have the impression they were on the same level with each other. but actually Connolly was on a smaller jump seat and slightly inboard to, I believe, Kennedy's left. So there was, and the way you set it up, going down in that trajectory, going down with the bullet in that trajectory, it wasn't a magic bullet. The bullet did what it was supposed to do. It hit Kennedy, and it tumbled through him and hit Connolly right where it was supposed to hit Connolly. So throw the magic bullet thing out. Secondly, the wounds to Kennedy came in the back of his head. Didn't come from the side, because if if it hit him in the side, the blood splatter on Jacqueline Kennedy, God rest her soul, and God bless what that woman went through with that, would have been a far different angle. We know far more in terms of forensics today by what had happened then than we even know 10 years ago. I remember seeing a really good documentary on ABC. Actually, I think it was around 15 years ago, maybe even 20 years ago, on this whole thing and what had happened. Kennedy, if anything, where a conspiracy may pop up, and this is actually very serious that I may bring up, if there is a conspiracy involving that shooting, the conspiracy would be involved with the fact that the Secret Service, and I've been very recently actually, many settings where there's been a very high presence of Secret Service, they would have been all over that. And if anything, they may have been lax. Well, they certainly were lax in their duty because they didn't have everything covered the way it should have been covered that day. And obviously, we've never had a president go through a city without the bubble top on that limo, without a bulletproof bubble top over top of the limo, like Kennedy did, unfortunately. It's kind of in a twisted way. You're dealing with Oliver Stone's JFK movie, which was filled with tons upon tons upon tons of BS and hyperbole. It just again, like I said, they use the magic bullet where these guys are lined up straight together. Again, they weren't. Kennedy was sitting up top. Connolly was on a jump seat. They were diagonal to one another. Okay. Rule out the magic bullet. You have here a lone gunman. I was up there 2 years ago.
I have a question.
I went in the nest.
Yeah.
And it's not very far from where Lee Harvey Oswald shot Kennedy. It's actually, and if you look at Oswald's...
What do you think of Oswald's past? And what do you think of all of that? Was he hired a gun for hire instead of a lone gunman? Like, there's many different theories.
Oswald was a lone nut job. Oswald was a lone nut man, and it's kind of a shame he yearned for attention like we yearn for food. He wanted this. He wanted attention. And here the guy has the killing of all killings in the 20th century. He kills a president. Obviously no excuses. No one should shoot anyone, period, let alone a president. But you have someone like a Lee Harvey Oswald who wanted the attention for this, and even though he did it, he still doesn't get the attention. Yeah. After all this time, after all these years.
So Lee Harvey Oswald then dies, right?
Was shot by Jack Ruby. So
doesn't that ring a bell for you a little bit in terms of just like very odd situation?
It was a coincidental situation, but again, what I know of the situation is Jack Ruby, again, you have so many of these guys, the two of those guys were so much alike. Yeah. They were wannabes, they wanted the attention. Jack Ruby thought he was doing something right. Doing my research on Jack Ruby is if you told Jack Ruby A, B, and C, and told him kind of keep it under wraps a little bit, the whole freaking block would know. Everybody around him would know. He owned the Carousel Strip Club in Dallas. The whole freaking bar would have known. Jack Ruby had a big mouth. That's why Jack Ruby was not a serious player. He knew mobsters. Mm-hmm. He wasn't a mobster, but he knew mobsters, and that's why Jack Ruby wasn't quote unquote linked in with the mob, because you tell Jack A and B and C, Jack was going to run his mouth, and no one trusted Jack Ruby. They thought basically, this guy's he's basically, to be blunt, he was kind of a clown, and not to be taken seriously. But suddenly he was taken seriously when he shot Oswald. And then you have someone like an Oswald, whose life was a mess, an absolute mess. He had a young child. His marriage was falling apart. Everything around him was crumbling. And, again, here's somebody here's a nobody who wanted to become a somebody. And finally, when he does something to become a somebody, the twist of history, he still doesn't get the credit that, I'm not going to say he deserves. No one should get credit for doing what he did, but he did do it. And without a doubt, there is no doubt that he did do it, because we're also talking over now 6 decades later, and nothing's ever come about who actually did it, because he actually did it.
But the commission itself is the commission they had for that.
The Warren Commission.
Yeah, Warren Commission was a little weird as well. Nonetheless, 61 years.
61 years
later, JFK files have not fully been released.
Not fully, because some things, but a lot of things have been released. And again, like I said,
recently we had Trump said, because now we have RFK Jr., JFK's nephew, RFK Jr. He endorsed Trump for president, and they went up on stage. When they went up on stage, they announced that they would release the JFK files, the second half. So we'll see if that happens. I have a question. What do you think about RFK Jr., JFK's nephew?
I think he has good intentions. It's kind of a shame he's not his dad. It's not his dad. And I think that comes out in the way he acts and the way he behaves. I think he means well. But when you have members of your own family that ostracize you, it makes you wonder and scratch your head about his legitimacy and how seriously he can be taken. I understand he's an intelligent man. And again, like I said, I think his intentions are good. He just lacks, certainly in certain areas where there's some things that he's come out and said recently that God rest his old man's soul, but I'm sure his father's spinning in his grave over some of the things that JFK Jr. has done recently. I'll stop there.
RFK Jr., but yeah.
RFK Jr., RFK Jr.
I have a bit of a different opinion when it came to the family ostracized part you said. So everybody has family problems. And they have a huge family, hundreds of people. And he actually has a lot of his family working. He worked with him on his campaign. A lot of his family didn't agree with him. But on the other side, like we have, for example, Walls, right? Kamala Harris's choice for VP. His family doesn't agree with Walls, and they did the same thing, ostracized. So I really try not to take that into fact. But we also have legacy media. There's a rise in a lot of podcast media. What do you think of legacy media? Do you think there's a turn of age with the podcast? Podcast media coming in? There's
still some reliance on legacy media. I see it at fights. You see maybe a prominent newspaper. I was down in Miami during the Super Bowl. No, I'm sorry. The Super Bowl was in Vegas. I can use Vegas too. It just doesn't matter. Where you had what used to be traditionally, the Miami Herald, the Las Vegas Review, where they would get prominent seating at these major fights because they were prominent news entities, and now they're not. I do, and still remain. Maybe I'm a little bit too old school here. Still a big fan of legacy media. I'm certainly a huge fan of locally, the Philadelphia Inquirer. I'm a part of the Philadelphia Inquirer. I don't think I know they have the best and the brightest, and they are the source. They are, Jeff McClain's one of the best, if not the best, certainly the best beat writer in the city with the Phillies. With the Eagles. And they still have the best and most qualified people. But I also notice, and this is just plain old fact, is that the younger audience doesn't really lean in the legacy media direction, but still yet you have entities that still give that
think it's
that
a source of
substance, that
validation?
substance to back up, the support that legacy media used to have.
That's interesting. Now, before we wrap up, let's go back to the Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight. I talked about how Jake Paul is a minus 330 favorite. Mike Tyson's plus 255. Who are you picking in that fight, real quick, and why? You got to pick before we go.
Before we go, I got to pick.
Minus 330, Jake Paul. Plus
You know what?
255
I'm going to say the hell with it. I'm going to go with Tyson. I'm going to go with Tyson. I'm going to go with Tyson, knocking him out maybe in the 5th round. It's a reach. Am I wrong? Yes, I am. Now I'm going to take a page out of. I'm going to rip a page out of your old man's book, because your dad is the first to say you don't bet with emotion, you bet with your head, and this is something that comes more so from the heart than it does the head. I'm hoping it's an exciting fight. I think it has a chance to be an exciting fight. I think there's going to be crossover appeal with it. I'm hoping legacy media takes a look at it and covers it. And I'm hoping that's a good show. Yeah. I'm hoping it's a good show. And I'm really going to dread, because it's going to be over. And they're not going to be able to sell it again. If it's a pity pat, if it's two guys running around pity patting each other and all that stuff, they're going to be booed. Yeah. And there's going to be tens of thousands of people leaving that arena. And Jake Paul better forget it after that. If they turn around and they poo-hoo this thing and they don't make it real, Jake Paul better forget moving forward again, because I don't think anybody again moving forward is going to turn around and give him any legitimacy whatsoever. Yeah. So it better be real.
All right. Well, we got Mike Tyson from Joe Santoliquito, plus 255. Thank you for coming on, Joe. It's been a pleasure. Always is, my brother.
Okay.
Guys, make sure to like, subscribe, follow, leave comments, your thoughts, and let us know who you think is going to win the Mike Tyson-Jake Paul fight. Thank you, guys. Have a beautiful day.